All right, welcome to the Journey 2020. Charles Morris, happy to be with you on a Friday evening. And once again, I'm filling in, well, not filling in, but Dr. Robinson is not available. Again, let's see, I'm putting up Dr. Robinson. Dr. Robinson is not available. He is busy in his new building, which means that he is doing different things. God is blessing him, that he's actually blessing other people with a lot of the things that he's doing. And so with that, I'm having to do the show by myself for the last 3 or 4 weeks. And the thing about doing a live show, regardless of what happens, the show goes on, and there's nothing like live, what you call television. I'm Charles Morris. I want to welcome you to the Journey 2020. I invited my pastor to come on the show, and he's actually on his way. He texted me and said he's on his way, so I have the challenge of trying to keep this going until he arrives. But I got a few things that I would like to cover. First of all, very importantly, I would like to dedicate this show to Mr. Rufus Clinton Brooks, a trailblazer here in the Central Florida area. For those who are watching around the world and not here in the state, here in Central Florida, if you get a chance, you get to please Google Rufus Brooks. He was born, I think, February of 1927. Has played a very instrumental part in so many people's lives as an educator, but a very important member of the NAACP, been a part of so many organizations and different boards here to make a change. He attended Bethune-Cookman College at the time, which is now Bethune-Cookman University. He also attended FAMU. He was a teacher, a motivator, a mentor. He actually mentored me. We've had conversations over the years. There was a situation in time where I was kind of going through something myself, dealing with a situation with Orange County, trying to deal with how to deal with that. And it's so interesting when a person of wisdom tries to speak to you and tries to direct you to the reality of life. And it's always a very hard conversation, not always, but it's sometimes hard to convey the reality of what it is when you're a person of color and when you're trying to deal with stuff. And with him being who he was and his temperament, his wisdom and the things that he had gone through, because we used to meet and talk over at Dr. English office, and there's times when we sat and talked, and we talked specifically about some things that I had questions about. So he tried to, in his own way, try to put it in a way to help you understand how to deal with being a person of color when you're going through stuff. And for those out there that know what I'm talking about, when you're trying to go through different things, when you're a person of color, it's sometimes it's very hard to convey. And I was talking about Pastor Jenkins, and he's here, so you come on in. We're starting off the show, and I was talking about I went to the service today of Rufus Brooks, and was talking about him as a mentor for me, and some of the services and the things that he has provided and what he meant for the Central Florida area. Also, for the last few weeks, I've been talking about some up and coming guests that is going to be part of the Journey 2020. Last week, we did a follow-up, and I wanted to again thank Haki Nkrumah about the great job he did at his conference that was Thursday and Friday. So I want to give him big props and big ups for what he did and the great job that he did. Also, I want to again talk about Lucille O'Neill coming on the show to talk about her book that is up and coming, Walk Like You Have Somewhere to Go. And also my friend Ann is going to come on and talk about her book, A White Man's A Woman, and also hopefully she will get a chance to bring on her mother to talk about the experience and sadly, but also a blessing at the same time. the fact that some men forced themselves on her. She had children that she raised, and she can sit here and talk about that and how, in a way, you sometimes turn lemons into lemonade. So we're waiting for Ann to come on the show. That's up and coming. Now, for myself, again, Charles Morrison, want to thank you again for joining us. And I asked, we're in this time right now, and a topic for me, and as I sit and I talk with my pastor, and I want to welcome Pastor Jenkins. I wanted to ask you to come on the show, and we've kind of briefly talked about this in the past, and I try to get as much information that I can from you, and I try to say this, ask the question in a way that makes sense, because for those who are believers, then they can kind of understand the question, and I hope that I can convey it in the right way. But first of all, I want you to introduce yourself as the pastor of True Vine. Won't you tell us about Pastor Omega Jenkins for those who don't know who you are?
Good evening. My name is Pastor Omega Jenkins. I pastor True Vine Baptist Church here in Orlando. I serve as a spiritual leader, mentor, and worship leader. And all that God allows me to do, and happy to be here.
Okay. Well, Pastor Jenkins has been my pastor now with 12. Is it 12? Did you just celebrate 12 years?
Just celebrate 12 years, yes, sir.
12, yeah. 12 years ago, I entered into the doors of True Vine Baptist Church, and it's been a blessing. God steered me there, and I can talk about how I got there, but that's not important. But one of the first things that hit me and that was so easy for me was that once I met you and I heard you give the word, you just made it so simple. And because of my personality and the way that I am, I just could relate to you. And it wasn't anything other than, I like this guy. I'm serious. I said, I like this guy because you just made it so simple and easy and to understand. But I was brought up in the church, which doesn't necessarily mean anything, in the sense that, a lot of people are brought up in the church, but it was just very easy to understand. And so I've always respected you just simply because how you came across. And to me, you were legit. And one of the things, and I'm kind of getting off topic, but now I'm talking about my own personal feelings and my relationship with you. You kind of fed into my spirit in the sense that I always looked at as a man. It has nothing to do with other than a man being a man, and that's how you appear, and that's what you preach to be. You stand in the pulpit, you give us the word, but one of the things that you always convey is that I'm just a man who's doing the best that I can. And even through your way of teaching, that if I fall short, please encourage me. Please give me words of encouragement, which meant that is what you were saying about everybody, not just you. We all fall short. We all need encouragement. That is why we need each other, even in the times in which we go, Lord, I don't know what happened yesterday, that point, that time. But that's what you preach, and that's just the natural thing to do. So I see all of that, and I wanted to pick your brain because I try not to look at this world the way the world look at the world. And sometimes, Pastor, that's very, very difficult. And even in my prayers sometimes, it's very difficult on some occasions, because in my prayers, I say to God, I said, it's hard to understand because you have so much against you, especially when you're trying to do right. The path of going over here and doing these things, which is so abundant, when I say abundant, it's so many over here. And you're not judging, but you're trying to stay in this lane. But this lane is fast moving, and sometimes it can be rewarding in this kind of way, and it can be a feel good thing. But over here, you're battling with your spirit. You know what's right, you know what's wrong, but so many are doing this, so many is doing that, and then you may even see somebody being rewarded, and you're trying to understand. You could be that person. And I say all of that to say that in this country and who we are and where we are through all the things that we see in the news and what's going on, whether or not we're killing each other, whether or not the cops killing somebody, and we see something that we know is wrong, and then they're being justified for it. And so it can be all confusing with all of that I'm talking about. So I want to pick your brain about in the sense of what scripture may say in these times, which is in reality no different than any other time. So there's nothing new under the sun is what I'm trying to say. When we look at Donald Trump as a candidate for the presidency of the United States of America, and when, by the way, before we leave, we're all going to have to measure our hand size, before we leave.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I had to throw that in. But anyway, what I'm saying is, what's happening? From a person who's looking for some spiritual guidance, and we always ask this question, and you give it to us on Sunday, and even though you gave it to us on Sunday, we still will wake up on Monday, and we'll still wake up on Tuesday. We'll look at the news, we'll look at our situation, we'll look around us, and we'll still ask the question, Pastor, what's going on?
What's going on?
What?
Well,
what's going on?
I think we're in those times that Paul warned Timothy about, when man would become lovers of themselves. We see the things he talked about in his letter, how man would become lovers of themselves, how our conscience would become seared with the hot iron. We become so cold and stiff. And I think with Mr. Trump, he come across as the non-traditional politician. I get that. He come across as bold and brash and say what I feel and taking the bull by the horn type thing. I get that. He come across as being real, no games, no traditional political games. Hey, everything is straight shooting. I get that. But it seems as though people are getting that and wanting that at the expense of integrity, at the expense of humility, at the expense of intelligence, and I think God gives us an injection, just like sometimes there's some medicines. That medicine is not necessarily there to heal right away, but sometimes that medicine is there to reveal. I remember certain things that you take, you see, you get chicken pox or the TB shots, You get the shot, it's not there to heal, it's there to reveal whether you have it or not. And I think Donald Trump's and Barack Obama coming along as first black president, those injections into this country reveal some real illnesses that's with this, which is racism. It really brought it to the forefront. And it took for a black man to become president before the racism really kicked in. It took for this guy to come along with all this brash, bold, making all these homophobic, sexist, almost like xenophonic type behavior to bring out people's real feeling regarding race.
Well, I don't know, and this is, again, I'm going back to my own personal opinion, and a lot of that goes back to what I feel that I have learned from you in my teachings, in your teaching. When a show earlier that you were on, and Mr. Hooper, I don't know if you remember, Mr. Hooper was on the show, and we started talking about Dwight Hooper was on the show, and I don't know if you remember this, but we were talking about Barack, and my point that I was trying to make, which I don't think it's been really understood. and the conversation was about Barack being a bad president. And to me, for myself, but Barack could be the worst presidents of all presidents of in all of time. My point that I was trying to say was, did you see how things lined up for him to become president?
Right, I remember that.
Okay. And so to me, it's not the presidency himself, but how he got there. As you are a believer, and if you pay attention, if you watch this, situations and what happened and how that came to be, my own personal opinion, when you thought that you were stealing an election, it was being stolen for a reason. Because if you hadn't stole it,
Right.
it wouldn't have been in place in the position for him to be. And all these other things lined up, the Twin Towers, the war, the economy, and things that every time it looked like, well, something's going, then the economy would crash, and this would happen, that would happen. And all these things had to line up for him to become president. And it's like, wow. But people want to, for myself, people may not acknowledge or understand what I'm saying. And so, again, as you always say, despite what's going on, despite how we feel, despite our emotions, God is still in control. Okay? So, for these days and these times, it can be scary. Donald Trump, to me, is easy. Okay? He's arrogant. He's about self. You can see him coming. I find it amazing for any human being on the planet of this earth that you ask, if you ever asked God to forgive you or something. And did you see that interview? Did you? Basically, he, didn't. The answer was no, really. Have you ever done anything to, ask God for forgiveness? And he answered it in a Donald Trump way, like there's two, correct. So and then the thing is, people will make jokes about that, but from where I sit, it's not a joke. It's sad that you are where you say you are, and this is how you see it. And there was something that I was saying the other week, and it's not that you wish anything bad on it, but I'm going to throw something out there, and I'm going to throw it out there because I just want your opinion. This is my own personal opinion. To me, Donald Trump is speaking words to something within himself and his family that I don't think is, this is my opinion, that I don't think is good. In my own personal opinion, there may be a day when Donald Trump is dead and gone, and those words from him may come back to his family. And things may be happening, and they will never know why. That's just my own opinion. And I look at it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. And the reason why I say that, and correct me if I'm wrong, when I think of Moses and who man is, just who man is, when I think of Moses, did he not go talk to the burning bush? Did he not go talk to the burning bush? Did he not have that personal relationship with God? Did he not part the Red Sea? From my understanding, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, the reason why he didn't make it to the promised land was because he showed a sense of arrogance, and that he made reference to something in him and somebody else when it should have been, he should have been made reference to God. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And the reason why I say that is because when you are that arrogant, and I'm trying to still understand Moses, because you had the personal relationship, but I'm taking it back to us and who we are and our makeup, that we have that arrogance, we are that egotistical. We can sometimes forget who really, and you got this personal relationship. You parted the Red Sea, and you know who did it. You talked to the burning bush, and this arrogance came out still. You didn't see the promised land for this arrogance. And that's where I'm coming from. Does that make sense at all?
A lot of sense. Paul understood that, because remember he had many accomplishments. He was very much endowed with power and abilities. But it's something he learned, and he learned it from those that thorn in his flesh. Something he couldn't do, and God told him, "My grace is sufficient for you." And so Paul made the statement, "I die daily to myself." That was speaking to humility. And we have someone like this who his money is his God, is obvious, is his God, his position, all those things, that's his kingdom. And that's all that matters to him, is his economic status and his economic prowess. So like you say, you see it coming. And it is sad, because he doesn't see that, how the Bible talks about things that, well, first of all, God hates a proud look, and he's a jealous God. And I think if he was a child of God, we probably would have seen some type of reprisal happening by now. But because he's a creation of God and not a child of God, it's prolonged. Moses' chastisement came soon because he was a child of God.
I don't want to cut you off, but you said something that was very profound. The creation versus child. Explain that for us, please.
We're all God's creation.
Right.
Okay? We're not all God's children. We're not his children until we accept his forgiveness, to accept Christ as our Savior. And we are endowed by his Holy Spirit. Now we are becoming, more likening to Christ. We're becoming Christ-like. We're on that journey. Right? Just to be born and walking this earth doesn't make you a child of God. It makes you a creation. That's why in Matthew 7, when there are many, and Jesus said, well, many come to him and say, hey, didn't I do this? Didn't I do that? And he said, depart from me, I never knew you. I created you. We never had a relationship. And there are those that are walking this earth in that same position. They've been created, and because they've been created, because they're walking and talking and breathing like you and I, the Christians, they feel like, hey, we're all in the same family. We're not. We are not. Someone asked Jesus, who is about, hey, your mother and your brother and all that, they're waiting for you outside. He was preaching. He said, who is my mother? Who is my brother? But these who do the will of God.
Now, what you just said, I think, is probably one of the foundations of what you try to come across every Sunday. That kind of, what you just said, kind of like should sum it up, but it's not that simple for us to understand. Through all of it is, through our emotions and our feelings, through what we think, don't think, our learning, and the spirit. It's what intrigues me more than anything are our different spirits. One person to another person. And I think it's our lack of understanding our true battles and what we're really fighting. As you know, I get into a lot of discussions with my friends and female friends, and you try to convey to them, because as we talk about their relationship and men, it's very hard for them to understand the spirit part that they're fighting. Because see, they see the guy, they able to touch the guy, they able to talk to the guy, but they don't understand his spiritual and vice versa, because it's the same thing. The spiritual battle that person is having and what they're trying to overcome. I can remember, and I won't call out a name, but the person who brought me to the church, and I can remember a conversation that you were having, and then when I came to you and I revealed something to you about that person, they were having a spiritual battle. And the spiritual battle was, I'm a nice person, but if I became angry, I saw this person become somebody totally different that I didn't even recognize once they were angry. And they knew that dominant, that part of them was so dominant that they didn't know what to do about it. And so when I shared that with you, you said, oh, that's probably why when she was talking, she had tears in her eyes. Because I could see her having no control once she became angry. She became a total great person to get along with.
Right.
But once she became angry, it was almost like she became somebody else. And whatever that spirit was, you know. And at 40-some years old, still trying to fight it, but at least being conscious of it. There's a difference. Recognizing and not realizing that there's something that I need to try to do about this. And so I say that to say a lot of the challenges that we're faced, that we're more spiritual than we are physical. And I know that's one of the things that you try to convey, or churches or pastors try to convey on Sundays, each time we get together when we go through scripture, battling the spiritual warfare. And where we are in this country right now, you know, and it's just little things like, in 12 years, I haven't played the lottery. I haven't played the lottery in 12 years. I haven't played the lottery. I'm serious. I haven't played the lottery in 12.
That's good. You're not alone.
Okay. I mean, when it was up to $1 billion or something, and I'm sitting there going, Pastor Jenkins would not be proud of me right now. Yeah, man. No, I won't. You know. So I won't.
Amen.
I won't play the lottery. Okay. Now, one of my best friends, he look at me like I'm crazy. You know, he's a church-going guy. But I'm not calling him out.
Right,
but he looks at me like, really? No. That's part of, and I say, and I put it in the terms where you can understand. That's part of my fasting, in the sense that because I believe, despite my situation, because I'm the poorest black man in America, trust me, I don't have money, that he will provide. And so with that being said, upon this in which I know that I'm not supposed to go into that room to do that, I have faith that he will provide, and that this is something that I'm not supposed to do. But, you know, that's me. That's I'm not saying that's what you're supposed to do. I'm saying this is what I have been taught. And so with that, going back to Trump, he's kind of like Michael Jackson to me, because I've been, long before Michael even became Michael in that sense of in '83, I always felt sorry for him, because you could see, there was just something about where you just could see him hurting, or there wasn't people around him to help. You love Michael, totally different than Trump, you know, I think, but it's just not understanding some of the simple things. You know, just not understanding some of the simple things like, what was it, Anna Marie Cole, the model who died, who supposedly looked like Marilyn Monroe. Right. I used to feel so sorry every time you saw her. She just like, I gotta play for the camera. I gotta do this, and I gotta be this, and I used to feel so sorry for her long before she passed away. And it's kind of like this thing that there's something that you're missing, and I don't know how to explain it. I don't know how to put it into words. And that's the same thing with Donald Trump. You know, and people, I can say it to you because you said it in the sense of his money, his wealth, and that's his God. And the funny thing is, I was just doing the Zora Festival. I had a chance to interview Bernadette Stennis, who is
Good time. Thelma.
yeah, Thelma. Very, very had sat with her for probably an hour, and interviewed her and talked to her, and we started talking about some things, and this was long before the Oscars came along, because that's a whole nother thing. I won't even get into that part. We'll stay on Donald Trump. But we just started talking about some things, and we didn't talk about Donald Trump, but we was talking about what we're talking about now in people in power, because she was talking about Hollywood. And she said the exact same thing that you said. She said the exact words. She said, Charles, money is their God, and that's what they worship. And that's who their God is. And I was like, yeah, because we were talking about some of the issues and the problems that blacks have in Hollywoods and movies, and why can't some of us who have money be able to do our own thing and create our own movies, and not be so worried about something like the Oscars, because that's their thing. But if we did our own thing and supported each other, which is one of our biggest problems that we had, then because then we become what they are. We forget about the blessings. We trying to hold on to it. We forget about who provided, as if though he can't provide tomorrow. So we have to hold on to it today. Not only that, I got to get some more. I got $1 billion in the bank. I need two billion, which there's nothing wrong with it. But the act of as if though, if I go to the bank tomorrow, it's going to be gone. The mentality of how we live and the way we think. And so therefore I can't do this for you, because it's going to take away from me. And not being able to understand truly where your blessing comes from. And so with that, when I was talking about God is still in control, it's just the whole concept of how we see ourselves, the world, because we're not limited to the United States, how we see the world, and the possibility that this man could be president of the United States. Now, I'm not saying that he will, but what do you think would happen if he became president of the United States?
I can't even fathom. Maybe I should be. I can't even fathom him, because of the establishment and it may be the most powerful office, but it ain't the most powerful person. There are people behind that office that I think introduces that person and says, "Hey, this is your playground. You don't go any further than here." I honestly believe that. If you notice the change in tone when Obama got into office, and Mr. Obama got into office, and some of the changes of tone, it wasn't that he all of a sudden, his whole campaign was a snow job. That wasn't the case. I believe he does and still do have a heart for people. I believe he do. But I think he realized something about being in that office, is that I don't have all the control I thought I was going to have. I kind of noticed that in some of his speeches and after he got in office, which it was fine with me because I already figured that anyway. And I think with Trump, the embarrassment he could bring on, his temperament. I mean, when you're dealing with people like Kim Jong-un, who could possibly have access to nuclear weapons, you don't just deal with this person from a playground status.
Right.
You don't deal with these people. They have power, they have money, and they don't have it all together in their heads.
Right.
So you got to know how to talk with these people. And he has not shown anything in any way that he knows how to effectively, talk with people. You don't even see negotiating as being some type of, unless it's a business deal, we negotiate. But if it's something like what's happening in North Korea, there's no negotiating. You can't do that. You can't just send your army, because your army is not made of robots. Your army is made up of human beings, sons and daughters, mothers and fathers. So you can't just go quick to say, we're going to send over here and blow you out of work, because you're putting people's lives at risk. These are things that have to be considered before you enter, into any type of, physical campaign. With the way this guy talks, everybody's a number, a fact, a figure. So I don't, if him being, it would be an everyday red telephone type every day. I mean, the pharmaceutical company would make a lot of money because people would be so stressed. so Valium and all those things, they would make a lot of money. Yeah, I was listening to a CIA agent and was talking about the difference in the job. And he was saying back, he had been on the job a lot of years, and he was saying back in the early 80s, when the threat was of a different nature. He said once a month, all the agents would get together. They'd go out and they'd have drinks and kind of decompress. That would be almost their traditional ritual, whatever. But once a month, they do it to decompress. He said, today, that's every day. And that's what he said. He said, today, it's every day to go out and have a drink and decompress. Yeah, so that's what changes. Then you get someone in office who has this type of temperament. Imagine what are you creating with those who are sworn to protect and those things.
Well, one of the things that you notice about every president, you notice how they change, and you see the stress once they leave office. If they're in there for 4 years, they don't look the same 4 years later.
Big Chief got a lot of gray hair.
And because we don't look at it that way.
Yeah.
We
on us.
we look at it as be like, man, you got the best gig in the world.
and that's the way I think he sees it. That's the way I think he sees it. He's a powerful man in the world, powerful leader of the free world and those things. But you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if he won the presidency. I could see him pulling what I call a Sarah Palin. If it gets too tough, he'll quit. He'll just quit. That's actually as governor of Alaska.
Right.
Just quit. And get me a reality show and follow this thing. I could see that happening with him. That if things get a little difficult and he realizes, wait a minute, I'm a servant of the people.
Right.
I quit. I did what I wanted to do. And he'll go, that'll be a part of his legacy. I beat out the Republican primary, I beat out the general election. I won, and so nothing else to prove. I'm tired of sitting with these people. I'm tired of taking lip from this person. I'm tired of not being able to act when I want to act, because when you act, it has to be Congress. And if Congress votes it down, you can't do it. So I quit. I can see that happening with him.
Right. You know what? I never thought of it that way, but when you think of his personality, you're probably right. It's just, I don't know. I don't know how to describe. I don't necessarily think in the sense of Trump, but our times. That what has happened, that you would even consider this guy. It's almost like, well, he's rich, so if he become president, I'm going to become rich too. Kind of like that silliness.
Well, I think it's also, people have grown tired of traditional politics and politicians. That's how Mr. Obama came across in 2008. He wasn't your traditional politician, and people love that. On top of the fact, he's African American. That's how our governor of Florida won his ticket. He wasn't a traditional politician. I think the traditional politician needs to look at themselves and say, we created this. We made it so someone could come along who could afford the campaigns and basically take our jobs, whatever. Because when we saw the writing on the wall, we continued to write. We did not try to, to modify anything. Just take it in your face type thing. And now these guys that comes along who are not your non-traditional politicians, people are gravitating toward them, no matter what. In this case, no matter what, if they're showing any type of leadership position, being temperamental, being basically saying, disrespectful stuff. Well, he's not. All they saying is he's not a politician, and that's what I like about it. That's what I think that traditional politician has created this, and I don't know if they even thinking that, hey, we need to do something, amend our ways, modify our approach, or do something, because truly there's another one in the waiting in the wings. Just like he waited and watched Sarah Palin and saw her arise. Believe me, he was inspired. And there's another one out there who's not a politician, who's going to write that ticket, just like Governor Scott comes along. I'm not a politician. People regret because people are tired of you a politician, which takes me to the church. That traditional pastor, reverend, we have to look at the people and stop walking into, these traditional, non-biblical, because we did it 20 years this way, 30, that can create a dangerous atmosphere. Look at the politics. It can create a dangerous atmosphere.
But one of the things that that in my own, I was having this conversation. One of the things that I think has to happen is I don't think anything is going to change until we change Washington in the way things are set up, Congress and everything else, the way we elect the president, and that's the whole system, because it's set up for them to just be in power. The system is set up where they love the uneducated, and I even think it's even set up so less people can vote. I mean, we vote on a Tuesday. But it's not about the people. But until we make it about us, they're gonna stay in their little niche, and so it doesn't really matter who you put there as president, unless all these other things change that's been put into place. This person will always be just like the little puppet that can just do his little thing for himself. But for the masses, I don't think anything is going to change until all this other stuff change and how things are set up. That's my own personal opinion, because it's set up for them to stay in power. It's set up for this country to stay the way that it is. And that's what is so mind-boggling to me, because we allow it and we don't act as if though they work for us. That's not our mentality. We're so busy fighting among ourselves, our little fights, the little stupid things that we disagree with and we focus on, and that we can't come together because we're too busy fighting our own little battles among ourselves. So that, I mean, they love that. That's right up there. Yeah, well, yeah, okay. Well, you guys, because now we're not paying attention or spending any energy on what's happening with them. So as long as that system is set up the way that it is, what is really going to change? But we don't talk about that. We don't look at it that way.
I see that, and I think the one thing that's keeping us from amassing some type of engaging progress is racism. That's what keeps us from coming. You would think, you know how they say once you had something better, you don't just settle for anything. And I look at with President Obama. I mean, this man is inspirational. I mean, he come across as intelligent, as engaging. He come across, as humble. When he's dealing with other leaders, he's respectful. All these things, and you would think, wow, we have someone, after having somebody who, years ago, remember, who couldn't spare a potato, and then the next, this guy who everybody saw as being empty-headed, basically. Then you get this guy who's college educated, I think Harvard graduate, This guy is just, an author of a book. And you would think, oh, we want to keep this standard. But instead, we're rallying behind this temperamental playground bully. So I think, had we not been at infighting, had we not been so engulfed with the poison of racism, I think we would have seen it. You know what? We want to continue this trend. Whoever's in office, make sure it's someone who intelligently directs, who gives us, who makes informed decisions, who does proper research, who is respectful and who speaks with a type of integrity. You would think we continue this trend, but we're running after someone who you push me, I push you right back, type thing, and it's embarrassing.
But and again, I try to understand it, and maybe I'm just, and I don't know. There's nothing new under the sun.
Mm-hmm.
From just looking at the world, and you can't really ever second guess God and what He's up to, because there's times you stop and you take a step back and you just go, oh, okay, God, what are you up to? What are you up to? What are you up to? I just wonder about us sometimes, Pastor, and I know this is always a topic of discussion. When I say us, I'm talking about believers
Mm-hmm.
and where we are. The same thing that I asked you the same question about Christmas,
Mm-hmm.
and how we let people take Christ out of Christmas,
Mm-hmm.
and how somebody not even from this country could come over and have their opinion and be so strong-willed and strong-minded and feel so offended, but I can't be offended that you don't want my Christ and my Christmas,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember your answer, but it's just that sometimes, again, I think I may have responded by sometimes just needing to speak up
Mm-hmm.
and say something,
Mm-hmm.
in the sense, well, I'm offended that I
Mm-hmm.
can't have my Christ in my Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
I'm offended that I can't express myself the way that I want to, because
Mhm.
now you're violating me.
Mm-hmm.
I have a much right to say Merry Christmas
Mm-hmm.
and whatever I want to say through my belief and what I believe in
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, and just like the other day, I think I saw something in the news where somebody was opposing and mad about the fact that before the board meeting, they were asking people to pray, or there was always prayer. And one of the board members would pick somebody to say a prayer before the board meeting started, and then somebody came and was protesting that. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's just little things like that in this country, because supposedly that's what this country was founded on.
Right.
You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm. One nation
you're right.
under God,
One nation under
indivisible.
God.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so when I look and when I think about these people, and and when you say stuff like this, when you say these people, like you're kind of separate from them, and I don't mean it that way, but
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to fathom sometimes. Um, and I do get that all of us are in different places, and I can remember them talking about Monte Williams. Did you, the basketball player? Did you see his speech?
No, I heard about it, but no, it says eulogy of his wife.
Right, right, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was very, very, very powerful.
Really.
Yeah, yeah, very, very powerful. Um, Here he is with 4 or 5 kids,
Mm.
and there was a lady. They don't know why, but she ended up having a head-on collision with his wife,
Mm-hmm.
and both of them died.
Mm.
Well, in his eulogy, he was saying that you can't be upset with this lady and her family because they lost a loved one too.
Mm-hmm.
I hurt, but I understand that God has His will, His way,
Mm-hmm.
and I got these 5, and he called them crumb snatchers. I got these 5 crumb snatchers to
Mm-hmm.
raise. And he said, I love my wife, and he said sometimes I would go home
Mm-hmm.
and leave practice or whatever, and they looking for me, and they didn't understand. This is him speaking. I just love being with my wife.
Mm-hmm.
I would go and spend time because we got a break and say, where are you? I'm at home. Well, I'm hanging out with my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Then he leave and he come back. But he said, I love hanging out and being with my family and my wife. So here's a man who loved his wife. Here's a man who in the NBA, he's known for always having a positive attitude, this positive energy. And as he stands up there, he's praying and praising in the sense to say that I can't be angry. This other family need prayer just as much as we do, because they lost a loved one just like I lost my wife. And I'm not trying to play blame. I'm hurting. I miss her. And we're a family. Now, a lot of people, I heard them talk about this, and I'm thinking about the football player that played for the Cardinals. I don't remember his name, who didn't sign, but he decided that he wanted to go in the service, and he was killed.
Yeah, Pat.
Patrick, and I don't forget his last name, but it was Friendly Fire that killed him. But what they said was, now this is not a blame, but the two different perspectives. His brother, at his funeral, he was so hurt and so devastated from the death of his brother. He said at the funeral, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm saying what the sports announcer said, don't tell me my brother is in a better place. Don't sit here and tell me, I should feel this way, because my brother's dead. And don't tell me he's in a better place. So through his anger and through his frustration and where he was, very upset, very mad, whoever he was mad at, didn't have the peace. And I'm not saying I'm just saying the different mindset and where he was in his life. But when you look at Monty Williams and the speech that he gave in reference to his family, his kids, and just how he stood. Because as you understand, and I can say this to you, that he found a place to go, that doesn't mean that he's not hurting. That doesn't mean that there's not tears in his eyes. That doesn't mean that he's not angry. That doesn't mean that he's not upset. That does not mean that he's not crying right now. But it's almost like, well, I kind of understand that he has a place and something that he can hold on to. But I feel bad for Pat
Tillman.
But Pat Tillman's brother, because what do you hold on to other than that anger and that frustration?
Paul talked about it, reminded when he said in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, he said, we do not grieve as those who have no hope. There's a difference for someone who has no hope and someone who does, and that hope being in Christ. He said, they grieve differently. And you just pointed out the two. Obviously, Williams understands the sovereignty of God. He understands that this is God's will. And if it's God's will, and I love the Lord and I trust him with my heart, then, through my pain and through my suffering, even some anger, I accept his will. It is done. Whereas someone who has no hope in God, who are just lip service, will, and I'm not just pointing this guy out, but I see it at funeral locally. Those who have that relationship with God, they're hurting too, they're crying, but they're not knocking furniture over. They're not uncontrollable, throwing fists, shouting things, and I've even seen some where they're refusing to let the funeral home attendants continue on with their duties. They protesting the whole, I've seen this. And so, and some have gotten up in funerals and literally blamed someone else at the funeral. I've witnessed that, so there is a difference in grieving in those, and we saw that with Williams, and I can personally relate to what he's saying, because I looked at my wife, God rest her soul, she passed away. I thought back, didn't smoke, didn't drink, didn't party, loved her family, loved hanging out with her family, loved doing things for other people. And at 44 years old, she's gone. And then I can see a 54-year-old drinking, smoking. You know what I'm saying? So if you're not careful and if you're not in tune with God, yeah, the anger can consume you and go off. And I'm sure this young man may have looked at young men who were less disciplined than his brother, who were less considerate. I mean, Tillman, like I said, left millions in the NFL just to go and represent his country and serve alongside his fellow man. And here's his fate. And you got some guy who's probably not even taking the military serious, who's getting drunk on duty, you know, all this, and they're still going strong. So yeah, but Satan gets in our emotions. And if we're not careful, he'll manipulate these times and bring out that side of us. But we have to be careful. That's what Paul said. We don't grieve as those who don't have no hope. I agree in association with that.
Well, and see, that was part of, and I didn't quite know how to, and I still don't know if I know how to ask that question, because you kind of said it, and that's what I've been trying to ask, but then you said it, and I didn't quite know how to, because when I was talking about the spirit and how we see Donald Trump and the manipulation of the way, because generally when you ask the question, you have to sometimes kind of put it in a different way, because the minute you say, well, the devil's busy, and they ain't going, oh God, he's on that devil. But I meant it just like what you just said, busy, that Donald Trump could be considered the president of the United States. And that's what I was trying to talk about, in the sense that what might be going on from a spiritual standpoint, and how he's busy in these times as we slowly drift into this place of where we are, whether or not we, and this is my own personal thing. Let me put the camera on me. This is my own personal thing. This has nothing to do with pastor. This is my own personal thing. Whether or not we put holes all in our, you know, to the point where we write on ourselves, that now we become canvases, which is mind-boggling to me, because now we're walking billboards, and we got holes all in ourselves, and the lack of respect, and what's been going on is we start to lose our children in the sense of respect and them honoring, and we have lost the village. And earlier we was talking about Christ out of this, and we become so much about ourselves, and the family's not families anymore, and all this stuff that is transpiring into what is becoming us. And that's what I really wanted to try to convey to where we're going to Trump. I mean, am I making sense?
Yeah, I mean, you think about when it started. It seems like now the denigration of society, what we gravitate to, you know, I don't say it started with Madonna, but I can remember Madonna when she was, you know, she came out with this wild stuff, whatever, and she became prosperous from this. You know, then you have the other entertainers who say, wow, you know, Dennis Rodman.
Right.
People, you know, he became popular all because he's rude, because he say painting himself and his wild look and his wild activities and all these things. People start seeing that, wow, that makes money. So it continued, it permeated, you know, entertainment, sports, and now in politics. And it seems like as a society, we pay to go see that person who's just obnoxious, rude, disrespectful. That makes money in this country. That's how Jim McMahon had built his empire. From WWE, the wrestling guy.
Right.
He's built his empire on that thing, that very thing. And that's from way back. It started with a couple of entertainers maybe. And because, you know, back then I mentioned Trump with Ross Perot. Ross Perot got laughed out. He got laughed as well. A few of his friends voted for him, and that was it. This is ridiculous. But this guy is Ross Perot times 10. And he's leading. And likely to be the GOP nominee. So, I mean, it tells you the lack of progression we've come in integrity, you know, because we pay to go see that kind of stuff. And anybody who's loud, rude, obnoxious, or whatever, hey, I'm going to see him. You know, he's going to spit on me. He's going to curse me out. He's going to say all type of racist stuff, whatever. Yeah, I'm buying a ticket to see him. That's where we've gone. You know, in entertainment, in sports, now in politics, and I'm waiting for the church. I'm waiting for somebody to say, oh, you got a pastor over there, he swings on his deacon again. Yeah. People are going to see that. They're going to see it. He pulls his pants down. He does this crazy stuff. And next thing you know, he has a reality show.
Did you see what the brother shot his pastor in church the other day?
Yeah, I read a little bit about that, and I understand that from his niece, or from the niece, and apparently the brother had a mental illness, and it was done in the office. So, that's all I heard. That she said her uncle did suffer from mental illness. So, perhaps that may have something. I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, that's really where I guess the question that I was trying to ask, and you broke it down for me, because and not that it's surprising in the sense of what's been going on for quite some time now, as we slowly drift over here for a lot of us. It can become scary. I just, even now, each day I just kind of go like, God, what are you up to?
Yeah.
You know, what are you up to? It's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we are actually coming to the end, but if there's any last thing that you would like to say to us in reference to what we've been talking about, in reference to us who have concerns, is there any particular type prayer we should pray? You can invite people to come over to True Vine on Sundays and Tuesdays, clothe us out in the sense of giving us something.
Well, first of all, yes, you're more than welcome to join us in Sunday service at True Vine Baptist Church, which is located at 1711 Rose Boulevard in Orlando, Florida, where God's purpose is in progress. Also on Tuesday evening at 7:30, we have prayer and Bible study. And I want to encourage everyone to allow what we're seeing in the political arena and the social things, the ills that are being revealed. Let it turn you to God, not turn you to hatred, not turn you to aggression of any sort, but let it turn you to seeking God for the answers, because He knew it was coming before it got here. So let's look to Him. Let's engage in His Word. Let's embrace His Word, and trust Him for the way forward.
Okay. Well, Pastor, I want to thank you for your time. I try to catch you, because you're a busy man.
Oh my goodness, man. I enjoy these talks, man. I do. I enjoy it.
Right. Well, I always, if it was left up to me, if I could control your schedule, I would have you here once a month.
All right.
I'm serious. I would.
Well, we'll shoot for that.
I'm serious. That if I can control your schedule, I would have you here at least once a month.
Okay.
Because I just think that you're a blessing, and that you can help us out to better understand a lot of things that's going on, and we need more of you, especially during these times.
Amen.
And we definitely we may need you twice a month as Trump become president.
So let's look at that schedule. We have to revisit that come November.
So that's I'm saying, if he become president, we gonna definitely need you to come on here at least twice a month. So I'm just saying. So I just want to thank you again for your time and for coming on. And hopefully, Dr. Robinson will be back with us next week. As I was saying earlier, he's been extremely busy with his new building and everything, because with that he's been taking on some new assignments, and he was first very much involved with National Black AIDS Day, and after that with the clients and some things that he's been doing. So we wish him well, and I think he said that I think he said that he's going to be out of town next week. Let me double check. But I'll be here, so you make sure you be here. So we want to thank you, and do enjoy the rest of your weekend. Journey.